Formaffinity,
where design takes form.
Hey guys, welcome to another Formaffinity video. In today's video we're going over part 2 of the universal joint tutorial. So yeah, let's dive right in. Before we get started though, in this tutorial, as opposed to part 1 where we were using 3.2 version 3.2 of the config, now we are in version 3.3. So denoted by the v.3 here on the side panel. So it has the one key addition, which is if we go into component mode here, if you shift right click, it brings up a special tools menu. So this has all of your editing tools for your various components, you know, so vertex. I go out and select edge, shift right click, you have edge special, and then there's also a mode switch on here, so I can just switch over to faces right there, select a face, shift right click, and now I'm in face special. So these are all of your guys up here. And so now with that hotkey combination, it's all right there at your fingertips. So we may be utilizing that in future operations in this tutorial. Okay, so in the last video we were going over the outer section, this guy, of that universal joint. So all of this, and we covered making cuts, these circular holes without the use of Boolean modifiers. So all done by essentially creating proxy objects and either using them to align up the mesh or actually building off of them. So checking our reference image here, in order to have our space between here and all the proportions correct, we will make a temporary additional outer piece. So let's go ahead and do that now. If I just grab this and let's see, we want to duplicate, so coming up to object, or you can just hit Shift D, we'll just duplicate that object, hit escape, and then we will move it up. And I'm going to open up my properties panel so that I can see what's going on as far as rotation goes. So we will just rotate on the Z 90, and then down on X 180. Okay, and so we want that gap to be similar to our reference image, and we also might have to shorten this area. Right, so these holes will have to line up. So as they are now, that gap looks a little bit too big. So coming over to our original object, we can grab these vertices, and you can see this segment here is indeed a little bit too long when we reference the original image. So we will move these down. Somewhere like that. Looks pretty good. So now that changes kind kind of our proportions. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of these vertices, these outer ones. We want to avoid grabbing the inner where the symmetry is built off of, and also the circle here. Okay, and then we're just gonna selecting the move transform widget, just move these in a little bit. Okay, so I think our proportions are looking better with those changes. We can go ahead and delete this guy, and Shift D, hit escape, move the new one up, and once again let's Control Z that. Actually we'll rotate down maybe first, so 180, and 90 on the Z. Alright, so that's looking a bit better. Cool, so that is just a check for proportion and spacing. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete that upper part, and we can move forward, and and I will go ahead and save that. Okay, so let's start by making those cap pieces that are on the bottom of the base. So this one we will name, coming over here into outliner, instead of just cube, let's give this a name. So we'll just call it U joint outer. Since there will be two of them, we'll call it outer A. Okay, and now I'm going to hit Shift D and duplicate that, hit escape, and then W for our move transform widget, and just move it up a little bit. Okay, so we've got the two of them there. Now I just want to isolate select that, so I'll right click and isolate. Now going into face mode, I just want this ring. Oops. Go over here to modifiers and delete the subsurf. Alright, so that looks better. And now we want to inverse our selection. So if I right click and go into marking menu, there's an invert selection right there. And then we just can hit X to delete those polygons. And now selecting edge, we can select, double click and select that inner ring, and just hit G. And then once again I'm going to right click, invert selection, and actually we want to be on face, but let's see if that works. X, yeah. Cool, so now we have the beginnings of the cap of a cylinder basically. And now if we back in object mode, go to isolate select, we can see our original object, and all of those caps are in place where they need to go. All we have to do is move them down. Just like so. And then we can also add a subdiv surface to them, and we will up them to 3. Beautiful. Okay, so now going into edge mode. There's our original one over here. We can double click that. Actually, let's go back to object, and I'm going to hit Alt E, which is the hotkey for isolate select for the config. Now back into edge mode. I can select all those edges, shift right click, edge special, and we will extrude edges. And I'm just going to hit escape, hit W for my move tool, and just drag that down a little bit. Something like that, maybe a little bit less actually. And then shift right click again, extrude, and just hit escape, and then with the move tool drag it down again. Right, and then we're going to have this is going to be visible from the underside, so we want to go ahead and fill this space. So with those edges selected, I'll just hit the G key. Okay, and then maybe we can Control R, put in another segment for the bottom, so that's sharp down there. Okay, and then Alt E. So now we can see that's starting to look pretty good there. Let's just move it up a bit. Oops. Check our reference image. So yeah, there's almost as if there's a little bit of an indent, right? And then it goes up and then it hits that edge. See, so right here goes up and then hits that edge and then goes down. So let's see if we can sort of, you know, because it has that machined almost like the top of a piston. So let's see if we can get that. So I'm just going to get shift right click, extrude face, and just hit escape, and then go to our scale tool, which is R, and scale it in. Something like that. Now I'm going to hit Control E, which is also extrude. That's the hotkey for it. Hit escape, and then scale it in again. Holding down shift, I can get, you know, I can finesse it. And then I'm just going to move it down. Alright, so it has that subtle look to it. And then that outer edge, we can actually pull up a hair, grab it. Just like so. And now move the whole thing back down just a hair. Perfect. So now we have that kind of machined look for those caps, and it looks pretty good from underneath as well. Cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and rename these caps here to something appropriate. Just going to name them caps. Okay. And now we can go ahead and start modeling the rings. You can see it's basically sort of a flat extrusion down, and then it curves or angles in towards the hex screw there. Okay, so let's approach that. Basically, I'm going to take the initial object and duplicate it. Shift D and hit escape. And now I'm going to isolate that. You can see the new object is here. So let's just name this U-joint rings for right now. So we want to grab some of the mesh here and extrude in, but we don't, obviously we don't need all of this other stuff. So coming into faces, we will select what we need. Let's go ahead and delete the subdiv for that object, and right click and go out into object mode, shade flat, back into faces. Okay. Grab those faces there, and now I'm going to hit selection and add to the selection. It's also that shift period. Now I'm going to right click, bring up the marking menu and invert selection, and just hit X to delete all that other stuff. So we want to merge, basically finalize the mirror. I think we need to do that in object mode. So let's try it. Everything looks good. We'll hit apply. Now if I come back into faces, looks good. Let's go ahead and add a subdiv surface and bump up the subdivisions and change it to smooth there. So yeah, that merged properly. So that's looking good. Okay. Gonna go ahead and delete that for now. There's a couple ways of approaching this. We want to extrude inwards, but we've got this second object over here, so we can't necessarily scale it in because our scale tool will be in the center. So let's try selecting all the faces first. Control E. Alright, so that doesn't work. It's extruding on the normal, but it's thinking that the normal was from a previous position. So let's just Control Z that, Control Z again, and let's come over here and delete all those faces, and then grab all these faces again, Control E to extrude, and now we'll just hit escape, bring up our scale tool and drag in. Then pull out a little bit. We can bring up the quad menu and looking at the right and perspective. Line it up. I have it on a wireframe there. Okay, so shift, or excuse me, spacebar and back into perspective. Now let's go ahead and add that subdiv surface. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. And hit Alt E. So you can see we probably have it a little bit too thick. Holding down shift, I'm just going to scale out a little bit. Bring it back in. Cool, so now we just need, for it to go down and then in again at an angle. And that's happening right on the outside of this piece. So first I'm going to create, let's see, Control R and create an edge loop. Control R and create another edge loop. Okay. Let's go into object mode, isolate, select this. So now we want those other edges in there, that one and that one. We're just going to scale them in. And line them back up. Just kind of eyeballing it. Most of this is going to be hidden on this side by that plus. But you can see we've got the proper bevel going on there. We just need to add some edge loops. So one right here. Alright, and then another one, let's say in here. Just to sharpen that up a bit. Alright, that's looking pretty good. We'll probably have to raise that section up a little bit. So this. So let's grab edges. So we want that, that, and that. Just gonna move it up. Cool, so something like that looks better. Alright, I'm just gonna file save. I'm gonna do a new copy here. Okay, so one last thing for this part is this guy here. If we look closely here at our reference image, there's actually a little bit of a gap or space between the ring and this outer part. So we can add to the realism by mimicking that space there. So one way to do that, actually, let's go into object mode, isolate, select, grab face, just grab these outer ones actually. Now switch over to vertex. It was shift period. Yeah, there we go. To grow our selection, and then we will just scale this down while holding down shift. And to do that, actually, you need to start scaling and then hit the shift button. Right, so scale, then hit shift. And then it does it in a smaller or a moderation there. Now I'm going to hit Alt E. Let's see what it's doing a little bit better there. Oops. Alright, and then I think we should grab this edge here and Control B and just bevel it. Okay, grab that outer edge again and just scale it down. Alright, now you can see if we go into object mode, we have a little bit of a bevel going on there. A little bit more of a gap. So that's looking a lot better. Cool, so the next step will be to mirror this over to the other side, over here. So I'll just grab that. Let's first delete the subdiv. Alright. Okay, we want the mirror modifier. Let's see. Off of the Y, there we go. Cool, and now we will reapply that subdiv. I'm going to set it to 3 on both render and viewport. Alrighty, looks pretty good. Awesome. So now we want to work on that inner part. If we open up our reference image off of the website, let's see, I think it's this image. Zoom in on that, you can kind of get a better idea what it looks like. It has that inner curve and then the outer curve on the outer part of the plus. Which you can see just a tiny bit of happening right there. And there's that inner curve. And so we need to plan for having, you know, basically a box with 4 protrusions and then that inner cylinder cut. So let's hit Shift A under Mesh, create a cube, and just drag that up, scale it down. Let's go try our right view, ortho, turn on a wireframe. Kind of see where the center of this cylinder is here, probably right about there. So we'll want our box to be lined up with that. Okay, so we want it to be a lot smaller first of all. And I think we'll go this way. Alright, so let's scale in a bit here. And then going into top view, ortho, wireframe. We just want it big enough for that circle. Alright, and you can see now actually we have an issue with that circle. It's not a perfect circle, so perhaps we'll want to fix that later. So back into perspective and shaded. I think that happened when we were adjusting for the the proportions of this guy. So actually let's fix that really quick. We'll go into isolate verts. Let's grab those vertices, just move them in a little bit, and then just grab this one. Alright, so that's a little bit better, but we can finesse that some more later. So going back to this guy, we want those 4 extrusions to make our plus sign. Just going to deselect those middle ones. And now we don't want to just or normal extrude, right, which is extrude faces, hitting escape, and then right, because we get an extrusion that's all one unit. So I'm just going to Control Z that. Once again, deselecting those faces. If I shift right click to go into face special and then go extrude individual faces, and then just hit escape. So we'll deselect this, deselect that. Now just scale that out. So that was a total scale of 0.1664. Let me just copy that. Okay, that was on the Y. So this is going to be on the X, presumably. Let's grab that, scale. Alright, so on the X, we'll just Control V, paste that in. Right, okay, and now we have the exact same dimension for both of those. Looks pretty good. Let's take our whole object, scale so that we are covering up that whole entire hole there. And then we want to even go beyond it a little bit. Something like that, okay? So now we want to go ahead and bevel this. So these 4 corners, you know, for that edge there. So I'm going to hit Control B. Okay, something like that. And same thing for the outer ones there. They're going to be a little bit different. Otherwise we could have done all of them at the same time. Sure, I have all of them selected. Alright, so Control B. Alright, something like that. And what's cool about doing it this way now is this inner part, you can see we've got 8 sides, right? 3 and 3, and the 2 there. So that's prepping us for that inner hole there. So if I add a subdiv just to look at this, smooth it. Let's go into face. We want to control right click and scroll the mouse to create more segments, and click off, and then just our number of cuts, let's change to 2, and then hitting scale, bring that up a bit. And then actually let's go back into object, isolate, select this. So we need to sharpen that edge. So that was under, so under edge, edge crease, and remember we can also hit shift right, edge crease, edge crease. All right, and then just sharpen that up quite a bit. I'm just going to copy that number by Control C, and then shift right click, shift left click. We're just selecting all these edges, and now shift right click, edge crease. We'll paste that in there. Okay. So a lot sharper. Okay, so our plus sign isn't quite as big as it needs to be. So let's go ahead and fix that. Let's see. Let's turn off subdiv here, or kill it for now. Go back to shade flat, just so that I can see what I'm doing better. We want these faces on the outside. And just scale out. So that looks more like a plus here. Actually, Control Z there. Let's do it all in one operation. Something like that. Okay, so we have a scale of that guy, so I'm going to copy it. Isolate, select here, face, grab these ones. Okay, and R for scale, and then we will paste that number in there. Okay. So that's looking better. If I hit back here, now we can scale the whole thing as a unit, so that we're lining up with the edge of this guy, and reapply the subdiv, reapply the smooth. So theoretically, if we go back to our reference image, we're going to need this to be more flat where it connects with that outer portion. So this is too curved. So we can do this a couple different ways. Isolate select. Now you can see I can't create an edge using Control R. I can't create an edge loop going across this this n-gon here. So I'm going to kill the subdiv again. Shade flat. Let's kill these two polygons. Let's see if we can create an edge loop. Still can't. Oh, right, because this is also an n-gon. So we have a little bit of modeling work to do here to get this to work properly. Let's kill these two guys. Now Control R, scroll mouse, click off, and hit 2. And now we just want to kind of line it up with that guy there. Okay, let's go ahead and kill these two edges by hitting Control X. Alright, now we can grab this edge, hit G. Same for up here. And then bridge across. So now we need to do the same for down here. Cool. So now we just need to mirror this. Let's go in here and actually back in face. Create a new one. New edge loop there, just in the center. Okay, and now delete these faces. Same thing here. 2, scale out. Control X. Alright, I'm just hitting that G once more to bridge across edges. Alright, so now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and save as a new version. And grab all these polygons here and just X to kill them. And now we can add a mirror modifier to this on the X and the Y. Alright, so that's easier to work with. Since this is a bit of a complex object actually in here, let's add go back out to object, add subdiv. Yeah, so that's looking better, right? Whereas before we had more of a curved portion going on here. Now it's hardened, and so now we can create that hole, which is right there. So back in shade flat, all we really need to do is, let's go into our top view and orthographic, and we just want to pull in. We'll just eyeball it. Okay, so we're starting to get a cylinder there. Now with these edges, go to wireframe here. We can shift right click and extrude, hit escape, and now using the move tool once again, something like that, and you can see we got those overlaps happening. So let's grab those verts. Let's do this individually. Okay. Alright, so I'm just zooming way in. Alright, so let's go back to perspective and shaded. Still needs a little bit of a roundedness to it. I think what we'll have to do is change the spacing between those guys. So our subdiv will, all we have to do is get it close, and then our subdiv will make it look pretty good for us. Alright, so now it's just a matter of hitting G and connecting, bridging those edges. And now that we've gotten that far, let's go ahead and apply the mirror. Let's see if it merged for us, those vertices. So subdiv and smooth. Yeah, looks great. Okay, so now we just need to harden those edges. Let's right click, click off, and do 2 segments, and just as usual, we'll just scale. grab those and shift right click, we'll change our edge creaseness. I'm doing about a 0.411 on that. So pretty good. It is still a little lopsided, so let's go to top view, ortho. I think if we scale these ones out just a hair, alright, that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's start on the hex screws. If we zoom in here, you can see it should be theoretically 6 sides. So we will come in here, hit Shift A, and create a cylinder. And for the vertices, we will set it to 6. Okay. And we will just rotate this 90 degrees. And move it into place for just one of these holes here. I can actually go into, let's see, I think it would be front view maybe, orthographic, front view, and we can turn on wireframe up here. Okay, and we can just move and scale it into place. So something like that, we'll finesse it a little bit later for sizing. And then back out into perspective. We'll put shade smooth back on here, and I'm just going to move it out a little bit. So we'll say right there, and let's isolate select by hitting Alt-E. Now in face mode, I'm going to add some segments. So this will be a segment here for this little edge. This segment will allow us to decrease the size on the back there. So grabbing both of those edge loops, we will hit R for scale and scale those in. Oops. And just move them in like that. So we need 2 more segments for our subdiv there. One here and one anywhere around there. It doesn't really matter. Most of this will be unseen. Okay, and now we need to grab this face and extrude it out. Something like that, and we will scale it in. Maybe a little bit more here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So next we want to go ahead and delete that. I'll hit X to delete. And now I'm going to grab edges and grab two of these guys and hit G to create face between those two. And then actually still on face, we will hit Control R to create an edge loop and just click off or double click so that it's set right there in the center. And then grabbing these verts, that one and that one, we'll hit Alt M and merge at center. Okay, and then back on edge, we'll create faces all the way around. Okay, so that's just a cool method for creating faces in there. Okay, so next we will go into edges, double click, and while holding down shift, select all of these edges. So it should look like that. And then we'll hit Control B to bevel. Just go out a little ways, something like that, and then before clicking, add segments with the mouse scroll wheel, and then click off. And then under the bevel options for segments, we'll hit 2. Okay, so you should have a line on the inside looking like that. Okay, so next, if you don't have them already turned on, we want to go into Preferences and search for Loop. And you'll see this comes with Blender, a Mesh Loops tools. Go ahead and activate that. Okay, and then if you hit N on the keyboard, you'll see a new tab under here called Edit and Loop Tools. Okay, so next we will grab all of these. So I actually want these two as well. Okay, now we'll hit circle. There we go. Okay. Now we've got this sort of flat area to think about. So we will go into face mode here, select those faces just on the front, and we'll hit Control E to extrude and escape to set it, and then just scale that in. Okay, and then Control E again, and we'll just extrude that down a little ways. Okay, I'm gonna hit N to close the loops for right now. And we will see what this looks like with a subdiv modifier. So subdiv, set it to 3. And we will turn smooth on. So not bad, still needs a little bit of work. Okay, so let's turn off the view for subdiv for a second. Go back to shade flat so we can see this better. And let's grab this outer edge loop. And under our edit again, let's hit circle for there. Check that. Yeah, you can see already that that's looking better. So we still have got some inner detail in here. I don't know how much of that exactly we'll be able to achieve without doing a NURBS, but we'll go ahead and try here. So let's grab all these and scale in. Just a little bit there. And then that top one, we'll just hit Control B to bevel. And the same for the bottom. Okay. Now, I want to take these guys and drop them down. And then select those three as well. Scale in again. Let's just move it up till we have kind of something like that. And then let's move these back down a bit. So that's flat. Check our smoothing. So pretty good. Let's see if we can finesse this with the circle. Okay. Right, so that's interesting. We lost our hard edge out there though. So let's Control R and create an edge loop here. I also want to create an edge loop kind of in the center and then scale that out. And move it out a little bit. See, because we have got a little bit of a curve here. Okay. So that's looking better. It's still not quite sharp enough. Just move it out a little bit. Scale it in closer. If you want to finesse this at all, let's save real quick. Just turn this off for a second. One thing would be to grab this edge loop and just rotate it. Let's go to front view, ortho. Okay, so I just made this line a little straighter here. Kind of just finesse till you have something there. That's better. Where those aren't showing up so much. I also want to make this edge a little bit sharper. So turning off subdiv for a second. We'll move this up. Just a hair. Okay, that's better. And we lost our sharpness in here. Let's do something here. Go ahead and create an edge loop right there. There we go. Now we've got that surface. And I also want to make it a little bit wider, so I'm going to grab both of these and just scale out. I think we need to bring it in a little bit. All right, not bad. So now we just need to mirror or duplicate this hex to the other side. But we've got a little issue first, so let's fix that. We're just a little bit wide on our back end. I'm going to grab these edges and just holding shift right mouse or right arrow, I'll grab all those and just scale this down. And we'll just move it in. Doesn't matter too much, that's all going to be hidden, right? Okay, so that's better. And oh, one other thing we want to do actually is sharpen these edges. So we'll add an edge loop here. And another one over here. Okay. And I'm just going to set it in just a little bit. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and save this. AO5. Okay. Alright guys, just a quick note here. If you look at the final render, which if you follow part 3 of this series, I will show you what I do to render this, but I'm missing the ring, which is here for the bottom side, and the hex screws could be scaled down a little bit. So I'm just going to show you what I would do for that in this part. So it's a little bit different, but what we want is something a little bit more like that for the sizing. And now you can see the ring visible there, just as it is in our reference. And so when you go to duplicate this, should be Shift D and then hit Escape, and then just rotate it 90 degrees. And then in the next step, I'll show you how to duplicate this, and it should fit in place. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So you won't see it in the final render, but the final render to video. But go ahead and, if you want that ring element there, go ahead and do those steps so that it's visible for your render. Okay, so now we want to go ahead and duplicate the hex screw, not just across, but also on the sides, because as you can see, there'll be 4 of them. And if we were to add a mirror as it is now, you'll see, say we set it to, I believe, Z. It mirrors it across the origin, which is set right here for this object. So I'm just going to kill that. That doesn't work. We'll have to reset the origin for this object. So I'm going to turn on 3D cursor, which is down here, and open up our transform tools here, and for, I think it's under view, 3D cursor. So our location for our Z will have to go up. Let's try 1. We'll go into left orthographic, so we can get a better view on this. Now I'm just punching in numbers here to try to center it. And turn on wireframe there. Oops, left. So I think our center is right here. But 1.1 is too high, so 0.9 maybe? There we go, that's pretty close. Okay, so now with our object selected, the 3D cursor into location, we'll go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to 3D cursor. Now you can see that little orange dot just moved to the 3D cursor. Okay, now I'm going to hit N to close the Properties panel there, and just under Modifier, Mirror on the Z there, okay? and you can see we've got a perfect mirror. Awesome, we can turn 3D cursor off for a second. So that is this cylinder object. We can go into object here, shift D or just duplicate, and hit escape. Okay, so now we have 2 cylinders, and now we can just rotate this second set. Let me do that again here. Shift D, escape, rotate a little bit, and now we can just set it to 90. Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. Okay, so now we just need to duplicate our big object here over and around. So I'm going to hit Shift D and hit escape. And now I'll hit E for rotate. Just want to flip this 180 degrees on that axis. Okay. And then just move it up. Let's go into, what was it, front view, ortho, wireframe, and just line up these holes here. So you can see it needs to go down just a hair. So I'm going to hold shift while I do that. So a little bit more. Okay, so when you get it lined up even with the original mesh there, we can just come out, and then it's just a matter of rotating it 90 degrees. Do you have something that looks like that? Now we've got these guys to worry about, so we will just Shift D, hit escape, and move those up into place. We also need to rotate them, so rotate 180 degrees. And we also need to rotate this way 90 degrees. Okay. Now I'm just going to move them into place right there. Alright, so those are set. I think that's how we had it. Actually, they should be lower in. I'm just going to go ahead and save this now. 5C, we'll say, or excuse me, 5B. Alright guys, so that concludes the modeling portion of this tutorial. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask them in the comments below. I will do my best to help you. If you got stuck or if you have any concerns with this tutorial, happy to show you guys this process of high poly modeling, and we were doing a lot of preparation for the subdiv, and not using any booleans in this tutorial. And also it's a good intro to Blender's Maya config. Hey guys, new merchandise is in, and really excited to share with you the new Maya config hat. So that's what I'm wearing here. There's also the Maya config shirt on the Gumroad page, as well as Formaffinity hat and shirt. So be sure to check that out if you're interested, and we will see you next time.